All right, today's guest is working in corporate America quite successfully. He is a graduate of the Potentia STARS program, as well as a computer engineering graduate from the University of Houston. He likes photography, video games, and many things Japanese, which we may talk about later. Welcome, Kai McMillan.
Hi.
Thanks for doing this, Kai. I really appreciate it. We know each other, of course, through Potentia, but for the uneducated masses out there, please share what you do for work. What do you do for a living?
I work as a software patching specialist at Baker Hughes. What this means is that I, alongside the rest of the patching team, work towards helping the company remain up to date with software and OS updates by releasing new updates once a month over the course of 2 weeks. We also work with the Infosys team in order to diagnose and resolve all the machines that have not installed updates for whatever reason to the best of our ability. It's quite interesting.
You got this position through the STARS program. What's the process been like going through the STARS program?
It's been both exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time, I gotta say. But overall, it's been a great experience. The interview process was thorough. It felt like an accomplishment just to get to each next phase, which, is the exciting part. I especially like the mini project portion, as I got to get a taste of a task related to the position. I also really appreciated being able to know what was expected of me ahead of time for each phase so that I could prepare. Even more so, like the little project also gave me a little hint that I would probably like the job when I get it. That was also very nice. The support that I received after I landed the job through the program has been and still is amazing. I got accommodations, a support system, and an overwhelming sense that I was being set up to succeed. Every part of the network has made transitioning as a new member of the company and my new role more comfortable and less anxiety-inducing.
The lion's share of the work has been yours, and you've done it, and you've got this position, and you're doing great in it. What would you say is the thing you're most proud about in your current role?
Having the position is one of the things I'm most proud of, because that is a huge accomplishment for me. I'm also really proud of being treated like a true team member that has value, because being treated like a real team member and someone who has value to bring to the team is something that I haven't had the opportunity to feel before this point.
Now, what would you say is your favorite part of the job?
Currently, my favorite part of the job is actually working on diagnosing the machines that are in an unknown compliance state. Part data entry, part detective work. There's the part that you do that's like you do every single time. And then there's the part where it's like, now I got to figure out what is wrong, because it's not the other thing. Now it's who knows what. And I get to play like a little detective game on what it is. And thanks to that, it's never dull. It's like always different.
And what do you feel you're best at your job?
Anything related to data entry, like something that's like a really repetitive in nature or very straightforward. There's these like reports that I have to renew twice a week and everything. Yeah, anything that I have concrete, like step-by-step steps, I'm good.
And how does this job compare to others that you've had in your past?
Bar none, it is absolutely the best job that I've ever had. I've never had a job that is anywhere near close to as good as this one, especially because of all the accommodations that I get through the Potentia program. Going through the Potentia program actually made me realize that there's a good number of things that it provides that I feel that could have prevented things that went wrong in older jobs. I kind of wish that I had, especially since one of my older jobs, like a lot of the things that went wrong were related to communication issues. And I feel like them not knowing how to use me correctly as an employee. And that kind of caused a lot of issues. And I feel like if I had all those like protections, like the form of how to communicate with me, the whole I have to have like my tasks like spelled out for me and tell me when things are supposed to be expected to be done and things like that, I could have avoided a lot of issues. And also the clear communication about how I'm doing, because that's also something that got me in trouble with one of my old jobs.
So let's dig into that a little bit more. I mean, I know after college you had some employment struggles. What would you want to share about those?
Part of why I ended up really struggling to find work after college is because I never actually got an internship before I graduated. which when you're in an engineering degree, if you don't get an internship, it becomes extraordinarily difficult to find work after you graduate. And that resulted in me having long months of unemployment and having to really scrape by and finding anything. My first job was very disheartening in and of itself because it only ended up lasting a month. That was hard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a contract position, and they didn't tell me how long the contract was. I spent months after that, again, trying to find another job in the tech-related field to no avail. So I ended up working in an overnight shift at Kroger for a while. During that point, tried to go for a certification to improve my chances in the tech field. And because it was stressful, I ended up having to drop the job because they refused to let me transfer to a different Kroger. Not even going to the union helped me. But I did get a job shortly after that, thankfully, for a while. But that job was bad and very demoralizing. It was like working in a sweatshop, essentially, in a foreign country. That's what it felt like.
So you've definitely had your share of challenging experiences.
Yeah. It kind of took getting help from a friend to get the next tech job outside of that. And it was after that one that I ended up going to Texas Workforce Commission and getting help with you guys to try to find an actual career. And it's only like thanks to you guys that I managed to get to here now and be in a great position for an actual lifetime career.
Again, you've done all the hard work to make it happen, and now you're in a place where there is a career path. What has this made you think about in terms of maybe some of your career goals, some of the things you want to achieve down the line?
For a very, very long time, it's been like my dream to be a programmer of some sort. It's kind of shifted from wanting to be a video game programmer into just being like some sort of software development role at, the company I work at now, Baker Hughes. Because I've never been particularly picky about what type of programming role that I could get, just as long as it was one. Even if I couldn't get a software related position in the future, I would love to have some sort of senior role in Baker Hughes in the future in general, because I feel like it's the company that I want to really put my career into. And so I would love to get some sort of senior role or software development role there in the future.
Now, we've talked a lot about work, and work is obviously really important. It's not everything. It's not life, right? It's not who you are as a person. It's a part of that. What are one or two things that you're passionate about outside of work?
Crafting. For one, I've made most of the stuffed animals that are sitting behind me right now.
That's an impressive collection.
And one of the
All
other
right.
things that I'm very passionate about is baking. I
Mm-hmm.
really like baking keto in particular in order to promote a relatively low carb lifestyle, even though I'm not strict keto.
I know health is really important to you. I know you're very, very interested in maintaining, good healthy practices. So is keto or is quasi keto part of that?
Yeah, especially since my mom is diabetic. And so doing low carb is part of helping my mom regulate her blood sugar levels and everything and keeping her healthy, which encourages me even further to commit to cooking and baking keto.
Now, I also mentioned photography and lots of things Japanese. So what can you share about those two?
Well, I actually am actively learning Japanese through a free app called Duolingo, and I actually do it on a daily basis. I learned how to read hiragana, katakana, and various vocabulary. I got into it because I like anime. I collect a lot of anime DVDs. I used to collect a lot of manga, and I go to anime conventions and stuff like that.
And photography?
Yeah, I really enjoy outdoor photography. I sometimes go out on these photography trips with my dad to assist him in getting photos for his photography business that he does on the side. I've always been a fan of landscapes and nature photos, which is why I really enjoy going on those trips.
Another area that's really important in life is friendships. And I'm curious if being neurodiverse has impacted your friendships at all.
Oh, it very much so has. It's affected the kinds of people that I'm able to be friends with. It heavily affects my ability to trust people and my ability to approach people. Something that being on the spectrum has done is that I'm extremely gullible. I tend to believe what people say at face value, and I don't question it unless I have high reason to suspect, if it's really, really obvious. But if it's not blatantly obvious, I'll believe you at face value. Even if you like told me the lie multiple times, I'll have a hard time not believing you again.
You're someone who's, I know, is a very honest person. And so you're probably, tell me if I've got this, that you're probably likely to assume that other people are going to be honest like you are.
That is definitely a huge part of that. It's because like I have this whole 100% honest communication style. I kind of expect the same way from other people. So I've been like taking advantage of a lot in my younger years as a result of this, especially in like elementary and like high school when kids tend to be at their worst. I was apparently so shy, my parents had to make my first friends for me. They walked me around the neighborhood trying to see if I could make friends with any of the neighborhood kids.
And how did you feel about that experience? Were you appreciative of your parents for doing that, or was it torture?
Now I'm appreciative of it because like I remained friends with like one of our with a couple of our neighbors' kids. I remained friends with them all the way up through high school and everything after that point. It gave me a actual legit childhood friend to have. I'm very thankful of it now, even if I might not have been at the time, because I was terrified of people.
I
Very
bet.
terrified of people, especially since like elementary and middle school made me more afraid of people because of the whole constant being taken advantage of.
Well, if you have a negative experience with people, it's just, I would think that would just reinforce that fear. Like I don't want to do that again. I don't want to be lied to, or I don't want to be treated poorly.
When I did find someone, I held on to them tightly. I'm like stupidly loyal and I'm like stupidly supportive. And I also like to spoil my friends. And essentially, it's like, I'm going to treat you like a family member because you are a friend. You accept me. You like me. Please don't leave.
Is there a message that you would like to share with other members of the neurodiverse community?
I would definitely like to encourage people who are having a hard time finding work right now to keep trying, especially if you're like a member of the neurodiverse community and you're especially having a lot of negative experiences in like the jobs that you're receiving. I would also recommend if you're in a bad place like I was to seek out therapy. Seeking out therapy was the major turning point for me in actually being able to find work because it was actually my therapist who suggested that I go to the Texas Workforce Commission in Potentia. If it wasn't for their support, I wouldn't have had the courage to take the first step to go in there and give it a shot when I was at my lowest of my low and I was so hopeless. And so I would also like recommend that people like go to their states like workforce vocational rehabilitation like services of their state if they're having trouble. And if you're neurodiverse, to reach out to Potentia. Any job that you can get like with Potentia's help is definitely going to meet your needs, especially since like finding companies that are neurodiverse like friendly can be really hard without help. But at least there's a lot more companies that are willing to like take a chance on neurodiverse people and see the value in them nowadays.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Kai. I appreciate that. There's no question. There's so much more work to be done. So much of what we end up doing is just educating people. But once they learn the benefits, the bottom line benefits, the communication and cultural benefits of being neurodiversity friendly and neurodiversity competent, then we see great things and we get great feedback. Even just sharing with people what we're doing, the feedback is really positive. So we're hopeful that through conversations like this that other people see that maybe allows them to say, hey, we should introduce this in our company, or individuals who see this and say, you know what, I am going to take that step. I'm going to go to my local workforce commission office, or I'm going to seek out a company like a Potentia, and put myself out there. It takes courage, right? Especially when, like you said, you're at a low point. So I give you great credit for doing that. How about let's flip it. Anything you'd like to say, or you'd like neurotypicals to know about neurodiversity in general, or just a message for the neurotypicals out there? What would you want to convey to them?
I feel like a lot of people on the spectrum are kind of like me in terms of being very gullible. So I kind of would be a bit careful about teasing people because they're going to take you seriously and are probably going to get offended instead of taking it as a joke. You'll probably end up making them mad, and you'll probably end up straining your relationship with them instead of it being funny at all. Also, I would suggest being a bit patient and maybe explain things probably more clearly and bluntly if you know that someone's on the spectrum. We don't get subtlety very well. It's kind of a common thing, you know. Blunt communication is the best communication when it comes to, you know, people on the ASD spectrum. Sometimes it may benefit to like tell someone about what kind of mood of a event that you're going to is, so that a neurodiverse person can prepare to know how they should be reacting and responding to the situation ahead of hand, so they won't embarrass you or themselves.
You know, just meeting people where they are and knowing that everyone's an individual and different people are going to respond differently to different situations or different stimuli. And for managers, really to not manage everyone the same way, because you're going to have people that are, you know, that may be going through something really difficult at home or any number of different things, right? And so I think, you know, one of the things that we see in our programs is that the managers that meet people where they are as individuals, you know, really do the best. And so I think all neurotypicals could take that advice, you know,
Oh,
to
yeah.
your point.
I was actually taught how to understand sarcasm, so it is possible to teach someone on the spectrum sarcasm.
Oh, tell me, how did this go?
Well, my dad taught me how to understand sarcasm by telling me lots of awful, awful jokes for years. And he would kindly tell me what it meant after he did the joke and I didn't get it.
That sounds like a form of subtle torture. I mean, just being
Uh,
constantly exposed to bad dad jokes. You have my deepest sympathy. But yeah, it can be tricky. And one of the things that we see these days is, especially with COVID and everybody working remotely, really good, clear, intentional communication, especially if you've got a relatively new team, is so important, right? Because it's hard enough to pick up sarcasm for a lot of people, but especially if you're not in the same office with somebody, you're not seeing them every day, or you're working remotely, or you're on a Zoom call. I got to believe it's even harder to pick up nuance. There are advantages to it, right? To working remotely. Our CIO jokes that he says he's been social distancing for decades, but you know, the communication aspect of it can be probably a little bit challenging if you're not in the same room with people often.
yeah, not being able to hear people's tone of voice can be a problem, especially since like that's one of the few things that I can actually like understand in terms of determining what someone's mood is. You know, even if I might not be able to get their face very well, I can usually get the voice, because like the voice can hold a lot of intent in it. And that could be a bit nerve wracking. Trying to figure out if the person's happy or unhappy with you in a work setting can be very anxiety inducing.
It can be exhausting, right? I hope that there are some people who see this, who are in a spot like you were in, you know, a year or two back, and derive some encouragement and some hope from it, and see that, you know, you got to persevere, get the support that you need, but you know, better times can be ahead. I also hope that some of the neurotypicals out there, you know, learn from your example. I think there's so much that neurotypicals can learn from the neurodiverse community. And I think that's something that's often missed. People ask me, because our organization is not only in support of neurodiversity, it's largely neurodiverse. I'm in the minority in our organization. And people ask me, what's that like? What's the biggest difference running an organization like this versus running an organization that might be more neurotypical? And the one thing that I say is it's a lot more honest. It just makes for just a better environment when you know everyone's coming from a place of honesty, and you don't have to guess what people are thinking. They're gonna tell you, and that's so much more preferable to me.
It's also kind of why I feel like I'm drawn to like honest people when it comes to neurotypicals, because I just generally trust honest people and like honest people more, especially since they kind of also usually understand me more too, and are usually more patient too.
Well, yeah, we can agree on that for sure. Kai, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.